So now that we've seen some of the aspects of upgrading Liferay, let's take a look and see how Liferay provides a couple of tools to help us out with this. So let's take a look at the tooling. Like with any project, we've built this analogy of upgrading Liferay is similar to renovating a house or a building or something along those lines. As with any sort of project, whether renovations or upgrading Liferay, you're going to want to make sure that you have the right tools for the right job, that you are using these tools to help you out rather than manually doing things and dedicating too much time towards that. So in the past, if you've come from previous versions of Liferay and upgraded them, you know that back in the day, all you had to do was point your Liferay instance to your database. Assuming it's the next version up, Liferay will take the steps to upgrade the database. As of Liferay 7 DXP, this is no longer the case. Instead, what we have is our own dedicated upgrade tool. We'll talk about that soon. But because we've gone over from 6.2 to DXP, the DXP introduced the OSGI container or the modular framework. We have the separation of core and modules, as we talked about in the previous video. So because of that, there are some additional complexities in which we had to change things up a little bit. So the upgrade tool itself, when we're using the upgrade tool, there's going to be 3 property files that we can configure. Now, you don't have to configure these property files right off the bat. You can run the upgrade tool, and then the tool will prompt you for all of the settings. But again, if you want to jump ahead and save yourself a little bit of time, since you'll probably be doing this a lot, you can use these property files to help you out. So first one, appserver.properties. This is just pointing to your app server and where the library of the app server is located. The next one, portal upgrade database, right? This is the database, the info, the JDBC connection to the database that you want to upgrade. Next up, portal upgrade ext. This is where you can set your ext properties, your portal ext properties within this file. So these are going to be the 3 big files that we need to have configured in order to run the upgrade tool. And again, you can run the tool, and if you don't configure these, then the upgrade tool will prompt you for them. So where are these property files first and foremost, right? If you take a look over in your Liferay home directory, and you'll find the upgrade tool there. Once you navigate into it, this is where you're going to find it. So just take a peek at Liferay home. One thing to note here, we do have an order that is taken, right? Portal upgrade database does take precedence over portal upgrade ext. So portal upgrade database is going to be the king between portal upgrade ext. Let's take a quick peek at what sort of things we need to configure more specifically. So as we talked about, appserver.properties is where we configure some of the details of the app server to let the database upgrade tool know about it. More specifically, we need to specify the directory of the app server. So where is it? And you'll see here in the first property, we're pointing to Tomcat. Yours might be a little different just depending on which Tomcat version you may or may not be running. The next one here that we see in the list, global lib dir, right? This is just showing where our global libraries is located. The portal directory or the portal dir, right? This is where the app server is going to be, or I should say where Liferay is specifically. An ID, right? This is just Tomcat, just specifying our app server is Tomcat. And then where our binaries or any other resources may be at, that's going to be in our bin folder. So these are all of the details here that we need to specify within the appserver.properties. Let's move on to the next one. This one should look really familiar if you've configured or used portal ext.properties to point to your database. It's more or less the same thing, right? So just point to the database that you want to upgrade, provide all the necessary information to connect to that database. And then finally, the last property file that we need to specify is that portal upgrade ext. This is just specifying any additional properties that you want to include as you go from your 6.2 to 7.0 or 7.1, depending on where you're going, right? The one property that is required here is going to be where is Liferay home, right? This next property here is an optional one. So at the end of the day, 3 property files that you need to configure. Now, if you launch the upgrade tool without configuring them, this is what you're going to see, right? You still have the opportunity to configure each one of the properties in the command line as you're running the upgrade tool. So again, your choice, but again, using the property files is going to make your life a little bit easier down the line. So a couple things we need to take note of before we jump right into the upgrade process. As we've discussed and as you may have seen or heard, right, a lot of properties in Liferay have been changed coming from a portal properties centric world to having these different config files. So you're going to want to make sure that you have your proper config files placed inside of the configs folder so that when you go through the upgrade process, everything is going to run smoothly. Before we go full steam ahead with the upgrade, we may want to do a little bit of configuration behind the scenes so that we have control over the upgrade tool. So we have 2 different places in which we can configure the upgrade tool. We can either use the command line that is launched as we run the upgrade tool, or we can use configuration files. If you do use config files, as we call them, you're just going to want to make sure you put them in the OSGI configs folder or directory so that your configuration gets picked up. So one of the things that you may want to do as you're going through the upgrade process is disable indexing. We know that indexing can take a good amount of time if you have a lot of stuff, and most likely you're going to have a lot of stuff. So as you're going through this, as you're testing this out, you're probably going to want to disable the auto reindex so that you can at least just test out and make sure that the tool works, that everything is upgraded successfully. So the way in which you can disable the indexing is through this property that you see here, index read only equals true. You can configure this in a config file, as you can see here. Pretty long name, so create a file with that name and then add the property into that specific file. At the end of the day, you're going to have to reindex eventually. So while yes, this is going to disable the sort of auto reindexing, right? If you want kind of the full experience, you're going to head back into the control panel and reindex yourself. At the very least, though, you can at least hit a milestone or checkpoint and see that the upgrade tool did what it needed to do. Next up, another property that you might want to configure before launching and using the upgrade tool is the automatic module upgrade. As we discussed, right, there's 2 different approaches that we can take when using or when going through the upgrade process. We can either go at it at one shot, or we can upgrade our modules manually. If you're coming from the 6.2 world, you're probably going to want to do it in one shot. If you're coming from 7.0, going to 7.1, you're going to be manually upgrading your modules, again, generally speaking. So if you want to disable the property that will upgrade everything in one go or in one shot, this is what you're going to do. You're going to be creating this file here. So you're going to create that config file. Once you create it, you're going to open it up and you're going to add this property right here, auto upgrade equals false. So you'll add that there, save the file, add it to the configs directory, and off you go. Now, once you start the upgrade tool, right, the upgrade tool will upgrade the core of Liferay first, and then it'll prompt you using the Apache Felix GoGo shell to upgrade the modules one by one. So there are 2 big takeaways we have discussed so far. Right, the first one is there are those 3 property files that we need to configure. The second one is before we launch the upgrade tool, we might want to set a couple properties depending on our preferences. Next up, right, let's actually talk about the upgrade tool and some of the behind the scenes that the upgrade tool goes through. And so starting here, right, how does the upgrade tool work? So the upgrade tool itself takes all of the properties that are defined within Liferay and just make sure that everything is fine and dandy, that everything is all good. Right. From there, it's then going to gather all of the class paths within our lib folders, right? All of the ones that we've specified. It'll then start up Liferay and in turn the OSGI container, and then it's going to run this DB upgrader class that's located inside of portal impl, right? And then from there, it'll start going through the upgrade process. So of course, the big question is, how do we run the upgrade tool? We've discussed how to configure it. Now let's take a look at how to upgrade it. It's actually pretty straightforward. You're going to go into your command line, your terminal, your PowerShell, and you're going to navigate to this directory right here, Tools, Portal Tools DB Upgrade Client. Inside of that directory, you're then going to type java-jar, followed by con Liferay Portal Tools DB Upgrade Client.jar. So it's just a jar file that you need to run. That's the long story short with the upgrade tool. Right. We also have the opportunity and the ability to run the upgrade tool using a couple of different options. So the first one that we see, and I'll scroll over here a little bit, is you can include a debugger. So you can run the upgrade tool in a debugging mode. I'll just scroll over here a little bit to the right, and you can see some of the properties or the attributes that we added here in order to debug or run the upgrade tool in debug mode. Down here, the upgrade tool can also use some default JVM parameters. As you can see here, right, we've added some things like our country, the time zone, the language that we're using, right, how much memory we're allocating. So a couple of different things we can do with the upgrade tool, but if you want to keep it pretty vanilla, right, you can just run it as is. No need to get too fancy. Let's take a look at a couple of other ones. If you add -j at the end, this allows you to override some of the JVM parameters. So in the example here, right, overriding some of the parameters that we have, and then overriding the amount of memory that we are allocating. As you can see, we've allocated 10 gigs in this example. Right? If you want a log of what's going on, you can output everything that's going on by typing -l and then the name of the log that you want to output stuff to. A couple of other commands that can help us out. Right? Doesn't always hurt to ask for help. -help is there for you. Right? JVM ops, right? This allows us to set some JVM options. In the previous example, we just used -j, right? -log file, or just -l, right, specifies the tool's log file name. So where you're outputting the logs to, what's that name, what's that file. And then -s, it'll just connect us to the GoGo shell after the upgrade process is finished. You're already going to be connected to the GoGo shell anyways, so this isn't always necessary. But if you want to be explicit, just in case you ran into some funny things, then by all means, go for it. So we've run the upgrade tool. It's gone through and upgraded the core, and let's assume that everything is successful. And then we're going from 7.0 to 7.1. Let's just pretend that. And so we hit the module upgrade path, and now we want to upgrade our modules one by one. So one of the things that you may want to do beforehand is just ensure that the modules we're about to upgrade are in a good position to do so. So one way you can do a quick check is by using the check command. You're going to want to type upgrade:check. Inside of the GoGo shell command, it'll give you a list of what's been going on with all of these different modules. Has anything failed? Have we tried to upgrade but something just didn't work? Maybe you thought the upgrade process was successful, but the version number that you're looking at indicates that it's not. So you're going to want to use that check just to make sure and just know kind of the landscape that you're in as you go through the module upgrade process. Another place you can check out as well is going to be within the database. You can take a look at the release table, and within the release table, there's going to be some areas in which you can see the version number of your modules. So the big thing here that you're going to be looking within the database is going to be those schema version numbers. You know that the schema version number is valid once it hits at least 1.0.0 or greater. 1.0.0 is the initial version of Liferay's modules within the OSGI container. So if you see something like 001, you know that the upgrade process never finished, or 001 dash something. Another helpful command as you're going through the module upgrade process is going to be upgrade:list. Again, just like with the previous command, you want to type the whole thing out, upgrade:list. This will show you a list of all of the OSGI modules that can be upgraded. Right? If you need a little bit more as to what's going on, what dependencies might be needed, you can do scrinfo and then the specific step that the module is going to be in. Right? It'll show you what's needed at the end of the day. So when you do something like upgrade:list followed by a specific module, you'll get something like this. So this is the output for the bookmarks service module. As you can see here, it might look a little confusing, right? So let's take a look and talk about what exactly is going on here. So when we're going through the upgrade process of a specific module, the module itself is going to let you know what it's doing. So in the previous example, you will see something like this: com Liferay bookmarks upgrade, version 1000 upgrade portlet ID. It's letting you know that it's, well, upgrading the portlet ID. Right. Another upgrade step or another example could be something along the lines of updating the last published date or the portal settings. So if you take a look back previously, the steps that were going to be taken is from upgrading the module from version 0 essentially to version 1.0.0. Right. And so as you're going through the command line, it might seem a little bit confusing, but as you look through, you'll be able to see a little bit better. So you can either visually look at it in the command line, or you can do a little bit of copy and paste and sort of sort it out over there in the text editor. So as we're going through the upgrade steps, or as Liferay is doing it, let's say we start off at a module version of 001. Right? In order to be valid, we know that the version number has to be 1.0.0. So the upgrade process is going to take a number of steps for us to get there. And so those steps are kind of like a countdown. So you'll start at 001 and you'll see step 3. It'll then progress to step 2 and then finally step 1 before reaching version 1.0.0. This image here kind of demonstrates that a little bit further. So you start off in version 001, you go to version 1.0.0, step 3, and then you'll progress to step 2, and then step 1, and then finally 1.0.0, all finished. So we've talked about some of the things we need to consider. We've talked about the internals of how the upgrade process is going to go with our modules. Finally, the last thing we're going to talk about is, well, how do we upgrade our modules? So to do so, we're going to execute the command upgrade execute, followed by the name of the module. This is, again, all done within the Go shell. It's going to go through and do the upgrade process for you. And eventually, once it's finished, right, it'll give you a confirmation that it is finished. Now, if things don't go as expected, the Go shell is going to let you know. You're going to need to do a little bit of debugging, right, in order to solve those issues that come up, and then you can try again. We have this example here of upgrading the iframe. So we can see here in this example, right, that our iframe module has been upgraded successfully. We can tell that because it's gone from the version number 001 to the version number 1.0.0, and we can see the version number 100 here as well. So that indicates a successful module upgrade. We can upgrade everything successfully, but if we want to, really double check to make sure everything is good, we have a way to verify these things. So as Liferay is starting up, we have a specific property that we can specify called verify frequency. We specify this property and we provide a value for it. This value will determine how many times Liferay will verify the core upgrade. So if we do -1, it's going to be all the time. If we do 0, it's going to be never. And if we do 1, it's only going to do it one time. So just depending on your preference as to what you want to do, what you'd like to do to verify that your upgrade process has been done successfully. In the GoGo shell, as you verify your modules, you can also use the verify list and verify execute to take a look and see what's already been verified and to manually verify your modules. So portal.ext.properties is used to verify the core. The GoGo shell can be used to verify the modules. Right, so we might be going through, there's probably a lot of modules we need to go if we're taking care of this manually, right? So one of the things or another command that we can use is going to be this upgrade check. Right? It does just that. It gives you a list of the modules that have an upgrade in process or an upgrade that is along the way. This can be especially useful if you think something went through, but it didn't quite go through all the way. So in this example here, we see that this module failed from step 2 to 1.0. So along the ways, it missed step 1 to get to 1.0. So then you can try to upgrade it again using the previous commands that we talked about. So let's take a step back really quick. Right. So to run the upgrade tool, it's just executing that jar file. Before we do, we want to configure some property files, or if you're living on the edge, you can use the upgrade tool itself to configure those property files. We may want to configure some config files as well to configure or to add some additional properties to the upgrade tool. From there, once we run the upgrade tool, we can upgrade at the very least core Liferay. From there, we can deviate and either upgrade our modules manually or automatically using the upgrade tool. If we're taking the manual approach, there's going to be a lot of different commands that we can use that we've just seen that can help us along the way. And so let's say we're going through our module upgrade process and things aren't going quite right. Modules in the OSGI container do depend on one another. And so in order to find some of these dependencies, there are a couple of commands to help us out. So one of them could be scrinfo, and then you can enter that specific upgrade step that you're at. It'll show you the specific dependency that upgrade needs. A couple of other tips as you're looking in the GoGo shell, you're going to want to make sure, again, these dependencies are resolved so that everything works. You're also going to want to make sure that the upgrade process goes all the way through before using that module as a dependency somewhere else. A module must make it through the upgrade process in order for the upgrade to be deemed complete. And one of the fun commands here that can help you out is dm/wtf. We know WTF stands for where's the failure. So kind of a fun command to help you out there. So dm/wtf, where something went wrong, our upgrade didn't finish, we type in the command and it gives us an error here, letting us know that it needs a specific dependency, right? And so the dependency that it needs is this portal kernel release. And then as we scroll through, right, it's looking for this specific version number. In this example, the upgrade process may not have finished for the dependency, so it's not showing that specific schema version number. And that's probably why it's not being found. So dm/wtf is a very helpful command when we're going through the upgrade process of our modules. Again, we can always head back over to the database and we can use that database to take a look at the release table and take a look at the version numbers over there. So again, we do have different approaches to get there. Whew. So there's a lot of stuff here. At the end of the day, let's talk one more time about the key points from this discussion. We have an upgrade tool that helps us with the upgrade process of Liferay's core and Liferay's modules. Right? We can upgrade the core and the modules at the same time, or we can upgrade the core and the modules separately. There are a number of different properties, configuration files, other configuration options we have with the upgrade tool that can help us out. As we go through and upgrade our modules, we have a lot of commands that'll help us see what modules need to be upgraded, what modules have been attempted to upgrade, and what are some of the dependencies that are needed as those modules upgrade. This can be a very complicated process, right? So if you do need additional help, we do have documentation. We do have many consultants out there available for you. So I hope this video has provided a lot of insight towards your own upgrade process. And I will see you in the next video where we proceed to actually run through an upgrade process.